Good morning. Hi, Sadie.
Hi, Stephanie. How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you. Welcome to everyone who is tuning in today. This is another LinkedIn Live session and episode here this morning, and really excited to have us today is Sadie St. Lawrence. Thank you, Sadie, for tuning in with us today. Really excited to kind of be speaking about issues around women in leadership and really excited to learn about your organization. Also looking at, the current time, it's Women's History Month, and Monday, March 8th is actually International Women's Day. So it's great to be able to have you in the discussion this morning. We'll be covering different topics around the challenges of getting more women into the male-dominated field. And particularly how we can actually aim to increase the number of women in leadership positions. So we'll be also taking your questions here today on the feed. So feel free, a very interactive session. Please drop any questions into the box here below, and we'll hopefully be able to offer some advice on how to get ahead in the world of data and analytics. And just as a friendly reminder, Harnham, we are a global recruitment leader within data and analytics. I'm the Senior Vice President for the West Coast operations and based in San Francisco. And I'd like to hand it over to you, Sadie, for an introduction about your group and with Women in Data.
Yeah, thanks, Stephanie. So it's really a pleasure to be here today. As Stephanie mentioned, I am the founder and executive director of Women in Data. So our mission is to increase diversity in data careers. So we really look at this as a great partnership or friendship together with Harnham, as you guys are the global leader in recruiting for data and analytics careers. And we're, as an organization, are looking to increase that diversity in these careers. So we offer a broad range of programs to do that. So we really achieve our mission through our 3 pillars of awareness, education, and advancement. And then we work with our members and then partner organizations to make sure that we are achieving diversity and supporting women in their career through 2 ways. 1, by helping more women get hired and placed in those jobs. And then 2, by helping them stay in those careers and advance. So I know we're going to touch on a little bit later one of my favorite topics, which is women in leadership. So really excited to dive into that a little bit further as well.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for that introduction. And on Harnham's side, we're very excited for this partnership with Women in Data, and across all of our teams and offices globally. We're really looking forward to kicking things off. So I guess just to start off from your side, can you give us a little bit kind of more insight into, Women in Data itself, and, what you kind of hope to gain out of the partnership between an organization like Harnham, and what those who might be tuning in today could do to also get involved within the Women in Data organization?
Yeah, so essentially we have mapped out the life cycle of someone's career in the field of data. And so when I talk about the field of data, we're talking about things like data engineering, data science, data analytics. You can kind of throw data on front of anything, and that's the area that we're talking about, right? So, and even some of the more fringe kind of roles, a lot of people working in public health are working with data. So those are the careers and industries that we're talking about. And what we look to do is, as we mapped out a life cycle, take people all the way from the awareness of the jobs that are available in this industry, where the industry is headed. And we do that through different networking events we have, through regional events, through global events, and then take them in, if needed, into the educational space. So in the educational space, we do residency programs, virtual study groups, book clubs. We offer a lot of support services in that regard. But ultimately, our end goal is really in the advancement space. So we look and see, how are we not only helping women get in those jobs, but how are we helping them advance in their career? And so we do this through mentorship programs. We have some leadership training, and most excitingly now, this job placement, which is where this partnership comes in with Harnham. So one of the things we noticed was a lot of our members would often have questions about the job market, be looking for jobs, and really wanted to have a partner in that process. And that's why we were really excited about this engagement, because we interviewed a lot of different recruiting firms, and we really felt that, you know, the values and the mission and what Harnham stands for is really paired best with our values and supporting our members as well. And so this is exciting because we're really looking at this partnership to just assist more women in either getting placed in job or even helping them move up the career ladder into that next leadership position. So what we find is women stay at a job a little bit longer than men. And a lot of times too, they may even be re-entering the workforce. So having somebody who can be your coach, your guide along that process, it's not, you know, interviewing and, you know, trying to get a new job is not something you do every day of the week. So sometimes it's a little bit unfamiliar, and having somebody who can support you in that process is really just a win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can totally agree and resonate with that myself in my own position. And I think, you know, so much about what we value in our business, you know, is, you know, equality and making sure that we're focusing on diversity and hires, not only internally within Harnham, between, you know, a male and female split, but also with our clients. And, you know, it's one of those things that in the last, you know, few years, but especially over the last 12 months, we've had more and more requests from our clients about, you know, strategizing, you know, how do we bring more women through engineering type positions, you know, other roles where it is, you know, purely male dominated. And not only can we bring opportunity to the tables with some exciting clients across the globe, but we can also do that in partnership, you know, with women in data and be able to refer individuals to your organization. And, you know, I do see it as a win-win as well. So I think it's going to be a really great, you know, partnership.
Yeah, and I just want to add something to that too is, you know, the problem we're trying to solve with increasing diversity in these careers is a difficult problem. And it really takes lots of people coming together and knowing what their best asset is. And that's really what I look at in this case is, you know, we would get companies who would come to us and say, hey, we want to hire more diverse candidates. And we find that a lot of companies do, right? But knowing where to find those people and getting access to them is sometimes difficult. And so we looked at it as like, hey, our role within Women in Data, we're not best at the job placement process. That's not what we do best. We do best at taking care of our members and accelerating them. So how do we find somebody who does the hiring side best? And that's, you know, where you guys play such an important role. And I think that's how we actually start to solve these problems, is when we all recognize what we do best and then come together with a common purpose and mission.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to remind the audience, if anyone did tune in a little bit later, just please feel free to ask any questions about women in data, about women in leadership, anything that we can address to the audience. Please feel free to drop those questions into the box here. And we will try to get through as many of these as we can before the end of the session today. So one thing, Sadie, that's been, you know, a really interesting topic, and here we are coming on to a year within our lockdown and obviously in the pandemic. Can you talk us through, you know, how COVID-19 has really impacted women in the workforce and, you know, also within leadership?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I don't have good news in this area. It hasn't been good for women, and particularly women. So, you know, we've seen about 50% women in the workforce participation has already dropped to 57%. So this is the lowest level since 1988, which is crazy to think about, because in January of last year, we were at the same rate as men. And so, you know, to think that within 1 year, we've gone back almost 40 years of progress of where we made it is crazy. I don't think anyone could have anticipated that. I think what it did, though, was really bring awareness to all the unpaid work and kind of questions and dilemmas women already face within taking that higher level position or with staying within the workforce. And so what it did was it shed light into all of those decisions that are often made. So with that drop, some of the reasons that we're seeing for that is obviously for childcare and schools being closed. But another thing we've seen too is women not taking that next leadership position. So essentially, they're concerned that if they do, they won't have the time, to take care of more of the unpaid work or other household items and things that they often are responsible for. And so, this is really concerning, not only because we've stepped back, but a year ago, the World Economic Forum came out and said it would take about 99.5 years to reach gender equality for women. And that was before COVID. So if we think about that and now even taking further back, we still have such a long ways to go. So, it's a little bit disheartening, but I think it is in a way fuel to the fire as like, okay, there really is a problem here that we need to address. And we all need to come together again to bring our resources to see, okay, how do we start to make changes and move forward?
Yeah. And that's, a challenge that's ongoing, both in all industries, and especially at the leadership level when, daycares are closed and at-home teaching became the new norm and everyone was stuck in their homes. And it was just, having to prioritize and figure out how to get through this. And I think the statistic you've provided, it's going to take more than our lifetimes to be able to, get to a place of equality is a bit daunting, but obviously at the same time, again, it's not a reassuring thing that, what we're doing today is trying to really tackle this head on and do what we can in our lifetime to make a change for that. We do.
I really hope to see it in our lifetime. So we can have the Women's Day celebration of all Women's Day celebrations.
Absolutely. Just move that needle forward.
Yes.
We do have a question from the audience. So from Marissa, for you, Sadie. So are there any tips for women getting back into the data workforce after years of unemployment due to the pandemic?
Yeah, great question. So this is something that's come up in our community quite frequently, and a lot of reasons why people become a Women in Data member. And that the first thing I would say is start to network again with other people. One, this will just help make you feel more confident in the fact of like, oh, when you're having conversations, I do remember more things than I thought I did. And it starts to build that confidence. It also then will start to broaden your connections for hiring and what's available. And then the second thing, after you broaden your network, I would say get involved in doing some projects. So it sounds like you're looking to get into a data career, which is awesome, or back into one. And so that means it's probably some technical work. So, doing a project where you're building out your GitHub portfolio, where you're even potentially doing volunteer work is really awesome to show that you were still staying active. And, not to be biased, but Women in Data is a great place to do that because it still relates to the area of work that you're looking to get into. So the main two things I would say is network, start some projects just to freshen up your skills and build up that confidence. And then also share it out. Once you build up your GitHub and do some projects, maybe write a Medium post or, share your GitHub on LinkedIn. All of that will be a great way to just build your confidence and get those skills back refreshed in your mind.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Those are some great tips. And of course, from a recruitment perspective, as a staffing agency, that's what we do in our bread and butter. Always feel free to reach out to us as well, while we're in the business of obviously placing people in their new careers within a data field. Harnham, we also come from a very consultative type of approach where we're happy to sit down and have a one-on-one and do interview coaching and look at a resume. And it is more daunting, I think, than it needs to be, when you have somebody that you can lean on. So I would definitely recommend utilizing, both Women in Data and Harnham and any resources you might have, just to kind of start to get yourself out there again. And the best way to do that is just to start interviewing and just putting yourself out there. So thank you for that.
I do think that later in the year, we may have some sessions planned for interviewing practice. We call it kind of like interviewing speed dating, things like that. So definitely stay tuned and look for that, because we're looking to work together to see how can we make people feel more comfortable. And you made such a great point, Stephanie. It really is just getting out there and doing it. Everything takes practice. So if your first one doesn't go perfectly, having a coach like Harnham and a community like Women in Data will really support you in that process.
Yeah, and I think especially we are into 2021, but 2021 into 2022, I think a lot of women are going to be in this boat. And to Marissa and the others out there, you're not alone, and this is something that you will have peers that you can lean on, and resources that a lot of people will be going through this transition as well. So Sadie, what would you say, I mean, from your perspective, obviously you mentioned 99 years till obviously, equality, but from your perspective, what do you think is the future of, technology and data leadership?
Yeah, so I think the future is female, right? And the main reason I think this is because one of the trends we're seeing is just the need for more responsible AI. And so when we think about that, we need people who not only have the technology background, but now as it's getting so prevalent in our world and how we're automating things and interacting with these systems, we need to make sure that we're being conscientious about the responsibility of the AI that we're implementing. And so I think the future of tech and data leadership is not only someone who has that technology background, but someone who also has empathy, who has high values and morals, who is ethical, and who can lead a charge when the path isn't clear. There's a lot of unknowns. And that you're going to be able to bridge those two components together of the technical and the human aspect. And I think those are the people who are going to be successful in the future, are those who can bridge the two together.
Great. Yeah, I think that, it's the future, with leadership. I mean, it starts now, it starts today. And I know a lot of organizations out there are looking at bettering, each hire they make, and really focusing on a diverse short list of candidates going through interview process. And it's kind of something that's being rolled out across all industries. So I agree, the future is female, and hopefully we can do our best part to contribute to that. Now, there's a lot of women who are actually looking to start off their career or move into the industry, or maybe it's academia into actual industry experience. But what would be some advice that you would have to give somebody who's just starting out, brand new in the data field in their career?
Yeah, so I'll break it into two components. One kind of like hard skills and then soft skills, right? So when I think of hard skills, I always start from like the bottom of the tech stack and like work my way up, right? So when we think of the bottom of the tech stack, we think really fundamentals of like, where is your data stored? How do you access it, right? Like, what is your infrastructure that you have for it? And so in that regard, I would say like, make sure you learn one cloud architecture system, right? Whether that you get certified in AWS or Azure or GCP, it really doesn't matter, but make sure that you have that familiarity with like, the foundation of where is data, how's it stored. From a technical skill point, definitely learn SQL. I just read something about like, with data careers, it's the #1 requested language that someone has. So that's for sure fundamental. Yeah. And then as you move up, you are going to want to make sure you have skills for analysis and for visualization, right? So Python, I always recommend people get familiar with, and then pick a visualization tool of choice, whether that be Tableau, Power BI. It doesn't really matter, but making sure you have those 3 fundamental things. From a soft skills side of things, again, I would say network is so important, right? So make sure you're joining a community. You're never going to know everything. This industry is quickly changing. So you'll be stronger by your community because you can depend on them and share with them information. And then the second thing I would say on the softer things is have a growth mindset. Again, this is always changing, so never feel like, hey, I'm going to learn these 3 skills and then I've arrived. No, you're going to be learning continually now for the rest of your life if you decide to stay in this industry. So making sure you have that growth mindset. And then third on the soft skills is find your purpose within a data career. So like you may love analysis, but what do you really want that analysis, what do you want the outcome to be? Like, are you very passionate about healthcare, maybe particularly cancer or Alzheimer's? Are you passionate about the environment? Finding a subject area that you are passionate about and want to make a difference in will carry you through all those hard times of learning and growth that you need to have. So I would say those 3 things on the soft skill, and then those 3 things on the technical skills would really be where my focus would lie.
Great, I appreciate that. Thank you. And I guess one question that I have off the back of that is you mentioned quite a bit about the networking and kind of staying in the part of the community and the network. Do you have any, tips for those who might not know how to go about that from a remote perspective, as we're all just on the other end of a Zoom screen and we can't just go to a networking event or a women's leadership meetup or, an AI, keynote speaker, for example. So what would be some advice on how to navigate networking from a remote kind of perspective?
Yeah, so I think social media, sometimes it is really designed for networking, right? And sometimes we don't fully utilize it in a way it should. By putting out content, you normally then get a reaction from people, which is then an invite to connect. So I think change your perspective on how you use social media a little bit. Start to put out some of your own content and your own ideas, because then you'll build those connections. The second thing is, within Women in Data, we do actually still do networking events. So we use a tool that does, again, kind of like a speed dating pairing and randomly matches you with people. So that's really fun. So there are, different groups out there who are still doing networking, and we found ways to make it work in a virtual world. So that's awesome. And then I think even expand kind of your idea of what networking is, right? Having a recruiter and someone represent you is a great way to network and open doors, right? So they're going to open doors for you, and you built a relationship with them, which then will also expand your network.
Great. No, thank you. And we actually just had that question come in. And so Sneha, hopefully we answered that question for you. And I think that's right. It is about utilizing social media in the best way that we can, in a positive, impactful way. And obviously with LinkedIn, it's just such an amazing tool. I would also suggest to people out there, from a Harnham perspective, we do participate in, we host, but also attend quite a few, networking and leadership kind of forums. So I would always recommend as well reaching out to the Harnham website and looking through any jobs that we might have posted or any kind of thought pieces, articles, for example, because we're always looking at trying to help kind of pair and connect individuals from a community standpoint as well. And just to remind everyone again, feel free to drop any of your questions into the text box below, and we'll hopefully be able to get through as much of those as we can today. So I guess just next question, Sadie, another advice question for you to pick your brain on, for women who are trying to move into a leadership position, who are not quite there yet, what advice would you give on how to navigate that?
Yeah, so this one is fun because moving into a leadership position, maybe a manager or VP level, sometimes can be what I see with recent college graduates, where they're like, I'm applying for a job, but it says I need job experience to get the job. What do I do, kind of thing. And I've seen that even with some people moving into manager positions and leadership positions. They're like, I want to move into this, but it says I need this experience to be able to do this. So how do I get that? So one of the things I would recommend for that instance is look for outside volunteer opportunities. There's a lot of organizations that are looking for leaders. They're looking for people to volunteer and lead a tribe. Also, the book Tribes is really good in that regard, which says, hey, you don't need to have a large group of people. Sometimes it's just a smaller group of people in the tribe that shows your leadership. So that's a great way to get experience. And then the second thing I would say is build your own personal board of advisors. So think of your life and your career as, in a way, a company, and you need to manage your career just like you would a company. So having a board of advisors, I have quarterly board meetings with myself to review, okay, how did I do? Am I hitting my goals? What do I need to adjust? That will not only, in a way, get you experience working in a leadership position and managing a board, but also gives you the feedback that you need. And a lot of times then the board of advisors can sometimes be sponsors for you too. So finding sponsors, finding mentors, finding career coaches, all of those things are really helpful. And I would be strategic in who you pick with your board of advisors. Use that as a way to, maybe there's a few people within the company that you're in that you're looking to get promoted. Use that as a way to share what you're doing so that they know who you are. And when your name comes up for the leadership position, they can promote you.
Great, thank you. And I know one question that I've seen myself in different kind of female executive events and different networking events is around that topic of mentorship. And I know, when you get to the top, it's lonely at the top, and individuals need to be able to have somebody to reach out to and network with and, bounce ideas off, either whether it be a mentor or a peer. And so is there anything you can speak to on how, women who are at a C-suite or moving into that type of level, would be able to find others in that similar network to be able to partner with and have that mentorship?
Yeah, great question. So everything we've created in Women in Data has really come from our community where they have needs like that, right? So we heard, hey, this is great, but I'm at a C-suite level and I want to have mentors or network with other people at a C-suite level so that, we can collaborate because they understand, what I'm going through. So that's why we created our ambassador program. So this is a invite and application only kind of closed network where people in the C-suite level can network with each other. So what we find is at that higher level, you may not find somebody who can be a mentor per se, but having peers at the same level who you can bounce ideas off of, be honest with and say, hey, like, am I doing a good job? Can you give me feedback here? Is just so beneficial. And so having that group of people that's a closed network that you can lean on is really great.
And in that, scenario for us, we primarily partner with that C-suite or that executive level to, for our client kind of relationships to then help build out their teams. And so in that scenario that somebody might want to get involved in this program, please feel free to reach out to me at Harnham. You can contact me on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out to Sadie as well. And we'd absolutely be happy to kind of start that pairing and get, individuals in our network set up with your organization. And we have a question from the audience, actually from Roxana. So the question is, I already struggle with lower self-esteem when surrounded by men in technology. And when I couple that with imposter syndrome that comes with being a data scientist, it can feel like a double whammy. So do you have any advice for staying strong mentally in our field?
Yeah, so first thing I would say is you are not alone. So this is the number one thing we hear at Women in Data is that imposter syndrome, low self-esteem, like how do I feel like all the time I'm just questioning, like, am I good enough and did I do a good job? So one of the pieces of advice I would say is we have life coaching programs. So that's a life coach that comes in and coaches you through those feelings that come up and those thoughts. So I would refer you to her because she's the trained professional in that regard. But I've listened to, a lot of her coaching calls, and I'll just share some of the common themes that she said is, one, just calling it out what it is so helpful, and knowing that you're not the only one who has these thoughts. I think it's even a higher percentage in tech of people. I think it was around 67% I read feel normally that they have imposter syndrome. So one, just knowing that you're not the only person dealing with it is relieving. And then two, just knowing that you deserve to be there, and that you are enough, and that we have to stop comparing ourselves to others. So I think before I said, we're never going to know everything in data science. That's why we have a network. Being able to understand that, like, hey, it's okay that maybe I don't know this problem or question, but that shouldn't make me feel like an imposter. That should just allow me to lean on my network, and know that there are things that I am strong in.
Yeah, I think that's an ongoing question. And like you said, to Roxana, you're not alone. And we do get this question quite a bit, within the space. And I think the intimidation factor can come in not only when you're actually kind of wanting a seat at the table, like in the organization, but also as you're going through that job process, and that job search is, I think the statistic is, 1 in 4, I think, women going through an interview process are it's up against men. And so a lot of times it can be, a struggle to, actually kind of overcome that intimidation and really kind of show your skill set and be able to kind of shine through from that perspective. So I think that's kind of an ongoing challenge, but one that you said, is hopefully something that we can help, tackle as well.
Yeah, I would just say in that regard, again, try not to compare yourself to others. I know it is difficult, be the only one in the room, but really diving into yourself and like knowing who you are and feeling strong and confident in that. Then no matter what or where you go, no one can shake that unwavering confidence, because you know that you are enough and you have value and you belong to be there.
Yeah. And that's, something that's really interesting as well. And, for our clients who are tuning in, who are familiar with Harnham, we actually produce a diversity report every year. It's a white paper. We collect data points from actually both in the UK, EU, but in the US as well. And there's just some alarming statistics that only 27% of women are, only 27% of the industry are actually women in the field. And I think at the data science level, it's only 20%. So you kind of see what those kind of big significant differences are of individuals who are actually, within the field itself. And 13% of the respondents to our report and our survey reported that they had 0 women, whatsoever on the leadership team. And so for me, that's a pretty heavy hitting statistic when we look at, how to get women up to that level and that par for organizations who don't have women to look up to necessarily. That's a big challenge in itself for someone that's kind of trying to climb that ladder and aspire to move up there when there, is nobody at that level. So that's something that we're seeing.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of you can't be what you can't see, right? So if you don't have any guides or kind of beacons of light of, other women in that leadership position, it's really hard to pave the way. And so that's why it's so important to have that network of other women, to have those people in your support system and your personal advisory who maybe you're not finding it at your company, and that's okay. Your company doesn't have to be the end all be all for you, but there are groups and partners out there who are looking to support you. And leaning into that as much as possible is what's going to help move the needle.
Yeah. And for any of our clients or anybody that might be tuning in today who is part of that, 0% leadership group, what, I guess, kind of advice would you give for, a male kind of board or C-suite to try to begin, the process of actually bringing women into that level?
Yeah, so the first thing I would say is do a self-analysis, or maybe have somebody come in and do an analysis for you, just to see is it really been that you couldn't find the women, or is there actually something, in your culture that isn't conducive to women? And sometimes it may be hard to do that analysis ourselves because we can't see on the other side of looking in. It's a little bit difficult. So having, people you can trust to come in and give you an honest opinion and see if there, is something that you're doing that could be changed. And then the second thing I would say is start to actually make an effort to raise those up. Maybe you don't have somebody who's ready to move in that position now, but fostering the younger generations that are in your organization to move into those positions will play a role later on. And then the third, I would say is, maybe just hire someone, right? So, this is where Harnham plays such a great role, is they have a lot of great diverse candidates, connecting with them to find the right person. Finding a diverse candidate does not mean that they're not skilled, right? You can have it all. So make sure you connect with the right people.
Yeah, no, and I can appreciate that. And, we're constantly trying to bring diverse pipelines of shortlists of candidates through who are also qualified, of course. And, that's absolutely right. So, for those of you who are a fully male, leadership team, and you're looking to bring in a female into your organization, reach out to me and we can absolutely help with that, that pipeline and that networking. Now, one question here from the audience, Shalini has a question. So how can you get back into work after a long career break due to having kids or, having been at home?
Yeah, so what I would say, I personally haven't gone through this. I'm just taking the advice from the people in our community. So from what we've seen is normally they first join a community. So first getting connected back with the network of people. When you are working, you have your work network. And then when you drop out of it, you can seem really isolating and like you're taking this big leap forward and you don't know what's changed or what's different when you take that next jump again. So connecting with people, so connecting with the community, connecting with a recruiter who can help coach you in this process of like, hey, here's what employers are looking for these days. Here's your skills. Here's how to refresh some of those things. That's really helpful. And then, start volunteering, doing projects work, just getting more confident by refreshing your skills.
And that ties in nicely to the next question. So Divya has a question about, how do we actually decide, how do we better on which new skills to learn, and how do we decide, because there's so many new tools and technologies coming into the market, and like kind of staying on top of that? What would you say?
Yeah, so I really look at my training as fundamental and then just-in-time training. So when I talk about fundamental training, make sure you have the basics of the tech stack that you need, right? Starting with some fundamental architecture, starting with your analysis tool, and then going into your communication and visualization. What I would do is just pick one tool from each of those areas. So what you'll notice is there are a lot of tools that overlap. They do the same thing. A lot of people, if you look at something like Tableau and Power BI, they're both data visualization tools. If you learn one of those tools, let's say you learn Tableau, and then you go into a company and they use Power BI, you will easily be able to pick up that other tool. And that's when the just-in-time training comes in. So I've oftentimes, learned a tool and then went into another organization and I didn't know that particular tool. So what I did was I took a quick, maybe a quick Coursera class or watched a few YouTube videos, just learning how to navigate it. But that just-in-time training is so helpful because you have the basics and the foundation, and then pick up what you need to when you have that problem faced in front of you.
Great, thank you. And just forward thinking, but not too far ahead. So just looking at the next 5 years, for example, and I'm curious to hear what you see, like where do you actually see the data and analytics industry going to in the next 5 years?
Yeah, so one of the things I would say is more automation, which is not necessarily more automation from we're going to continue to automate things. We definitely will, right? But more automation from even automating parts of our jobs. So when I started in the industry in 2014, the tools we had available and how we did things were a lot harder. And that was not even that long ago. So what I see is, there's going to be more of a rise of a citizen data scientist, of business units and functions having their hands on data and analytics and doing it themselves, because the tools and technologies are just making it easier and easier for more people to get into the field and to democratize data. The other thing I would say is there will be more of a focus on responsible AI. So this is going to be a really prevalent topic coming in the next 5 years. There's been some reports come out. I know it's the National Security Commission on AI just last week released a 700+ page report to the government just in terms of responsible AI and what we need to do about it. So that's going to be a big topic. And then, I would say the last thing is really just the democratization of data in general. So who needs to know and have these skills? I think COVID accelerated this. I know where I live, our governor was sharing models and statistics and all these things, and I never thought it would be a day when people would need to interpret predictive models on the news, right? So we're just seeing how prevalent being data literate is, and having that data literacy so we don't spread misinformation. And I think that will just continue to evolve more in the next 5 years.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that. And it feels like things are changing on a monthly basis, let alone what we've seen over the last year and forward thinking. So I really appreciate that. And I think that, everything that we've discussed today, I mean, Sadie, thank you again so much for your time on our live session. And, for those of you that are tuning in, again, I can't stress enough, we're very excited to welcome you into our network here at Harnham and also into the Women in Data organization. And, as a recap, Harnham, we're specifically focused on finding top talent within the data and analytics space. We have a global organization, throughout the UK, Europe, and in the United States. And our kind of number one focus is finding, the best talent to fill within the data and analytics space. And a lot of that comes from a diverse short list of candidates and, putting a big focus on bringing women through in these types of positions. So for those of you who are interested in partnering with Harnham, whether you're hiring for your team, wanting to bring in some female leaders throughout your organization, or looking for career advice and how to get back into the field, or wanting to understand what the latest industry trends are, we're more than happy to host a one-to-one kind of consult and just have an introduction. And of course, please feel free to reach out to myself or to Sadie. Sadie, obviously founder of the Women in Data organization. Really excited to see what we can do as the partnership moves forward between Harnham and Women in Data.
Same here. Thanks so much, Stephanie. We're looking forward to the road ahead.
Excellent. Well, appreciate your time again, and thank you everyone for tuning in today.